For 2 years, Asante McGee was a friend of the currently disgraced R&B superstardom, R. Kelly, but in the summer of 2016 she went to dwell in his building in Georgia. Down there were some female down there, she found, and really stringent rules. Whenever I was in my chamber how was while I would urge household to say to my family, as while I was in Robert, he didn't wish us to include our phones and include PIN in the external planet. While I met Robert, or quite R. Kelly, it wasn't love meet Duke adorable who swept me off my feet. He didn't vine and dinner me, he was fair a hot and fun boy. We did regular material, he took me trading and we enjoyed possessing dinners along. But down there was a time for a lyrics exchanging in 2014 while I believe I should include named things weren't which they seemed. It was very previous on in our relation and I texted him, address him as Rob and he told, not, can you fair urge me dad? Down there was no debate, he fair said me his consumer demand. While I see behind at how time, read the lyrics communication in my vehicle, I should include surveyed it. I should include seen his behavior in how time as a red banner. I was at first entered to R. Kelly in September 2013 by a term of his surround, while he was performance in a clubhouse in Atlanta to contribute his following round. Yet, we had a appropriate introduce in January 2014. A term of his surround guessed me to hover out in R. Kelly and several of his friends. We went to the mall and we laughed and talked. We fair suspended out love two old friends. Up I leftward, he gave me his quantity and we once begun texting every some. We texted for weeks and one day he guessed me to his gig in Wand Blush, Louisiana, that was creature detained on February 13th. Following observer him execute on phase, he guessed me behind to his in chamber and we had our at first sex face. Following Valentine's date, we stored in PIN via lyrics messages and he began attractive me to various concerts through America, and while he attended Atlanta, wherever I lived, I would remain in him of period to period. Time we were in a relation along, he done it precise how I wasn't the just female he was vision. The reality how he said me he was date and asleep in some female, it done me sense love he was making his top to be fair in me, so I recognized how and solved to remain in the relation. For the at first 2 year of our relation, all was large. I would fly out and see him execute, and we would expend period along, and it treated for both of us. On the Easter weekend of March 2016, he flew me out to Chicago, but I didn't listen of him for 2 days and later while I eventually heard of him, he had who go and choose me up to get me to the workshop wherever he was record. Yet, I ended up creature blocked in a van of 11 o'clock in the night to 8 o'clock at overnight. While I was let out of the wagon, by members of his surround and nephew, I found R. Kelly party in the workshop as if anything had happened. He acted fully regular, but months after, I found out how closing me in a van was a testing. He was test my boundaries and game reason games. Later in May 2016, I flew to look him execute in Dallas. Following the gig, one of his assistants told you requirement to rush up and get yours clothing of the inn. I got my clothing and got in the van that was imaginary to get me to Oklahoma, so I could capture a flying household to Atlanta, but the bus never stopped. We ended up in an enormous building in Johns Gulf, Georgia. While I got off the bus and walked in the building, Robert told, "Greet household, infant." He gave me a round of the building, showed me my chamber. So I mind I'd remain for the summer since my guys were stay in household for the holidays, that happens each year. So in my guys not departure behind to high school before the end of August, I mind, okay, I can remain and expend several period in him for a few additional weeks. It was never a constant location in my reason. As quickly as I excited in, he begun inflicting both of emotion and sex misuse. No, he didn't strengthen me to include sex in him, but he frightened me to perpetrate sex acts and include threesomes in some female while I done it precise how I wasn't convenient. If I told I didn't wish to do thing he would cry at me and urge me silly. He would speak me how the some girls who were as well newcomer or residing in the building at the period in us had no issue in his sex customer request, so which was my issue? I felt humiliated by his actions and his daydreams. TV audience in some countries can look components of the at first document and the complete release of the other on YouTube, which inflicted though more than stress among us was his coach. Her part? Her part was to boat train me and the some girls how to sexually happy and meet Robert. On to both of Robert and her, they had been sexually implicated along for 16 year, with she was 14 year ancient. As she had been in him for so length, it was love. She was the chief lady in high school and she utilized her stance to by word misuse me. I recall one day she and I got in and reason and Robert told I had dark female symptom. He told how I didn't love creature said which to do by a junior dark female and how he wasn't departure to let me, a dark female, speak him which to do. Down there is a misperception how R. Kelly fair praise on junior girls. How isn't real? Affirmative, he targets youthful girls more than so, since they are more than sensitive, facilitating to handle and more than potential to be celebrity affected. I was 35 while I met R. Kelly and he knew I had skilled misuse in a early relation. He had me precisely wherever he requested me, since he done me confidence him. He done me trust he would never wound me by receive me to outdoor up on my story of misuse. The wound and ache didn't halt in sex bullying and emotion misuse. He was control. One day, he grasped my arm for tiring the incorrect jacket. He had rules how I and the some girls who lived in him or had a sex relation in him had to pursue. One date, we were imaginary to be departure out and I was tiring a top in pasta straps and pants. As quickly as he saw me, he grasped me and said me to changing. I went upper floor and modified and instead of departure out in the some girls, he done me go to the workshop in him. While we got to the workshop, he said me how my gear frightened the some girls in the building. He told how I necessary to gown love the some girls, who were tiring tracksuits, but it was above 100F, 38C, external. While I told he didn't thoroughness. He controllable each dimension of my lifetime, time I lived in him. Myself and two some girls who were residing in him time I was down there could just eat while he told we could take. Occasionally you could go an entire day out of consuming since he would just overlook to nourish you or he didn't wish to take. I recall purchase a bag of snacks while we went out and concealment them in my chamber, so I ever had meal. He though controllable while we could use the bathroom or go out of our rooms. We would include to lyrics or urge and ask for permit to use the bathroom and if he didn't answer, you were permitted to go out of yours chamber and stamp on the story before he heard thou. The misuse and monitoring was enterprising me to my end, but it wasn't fair how. I would include to look youthful girls, several as youthful as 18-year ancient, execute depraved sex acts on him and I fair couldn't get it any more than. I begun drawing my flea. I named a boyfriend who treated in the region and requested if she would choose me up. After how date, my boyfriend named me but since of the safety and gates she wasn't capable to driving up to the building. I knew I had to get my opportunity, so I packed my bag and solved to fair go of. Robert was external speaking to his personnel and he looked stunned, he though chuckled, so you are outgoing. I fair told, affirmative, I'm outgoing. I transferred on walk to my boyfriend's car and didn't see behind. I stayed in R. Kelly for 3 weeks in full. The 1 week following I left word he named me and told how I necessary to apologize for walk out and how I had to go behind household. I didn't. A lot of the some female who incurred misuse of R. Kelly include go along and hold every some raised. I don't include any regrets expressive my history and upcoming striker, not fair since of whom my abusing was, but since proverb out noisy which I went via will assist some female in such situations speak their stories and for other to trust them.